We're here in the heart of Hollywood, on the old Columbia studio lot, to talk to a writer who has written for witches, werewolves, and misfits of science. But these days he can be found writing for a few select heroes that are out to save the world. Nominated for 2 Primetime Emmys, the writer behind this door is TIM KRING. I'm Jeff Berman, and we're about to enter the right environment. Does it require a different skill set to write a serialized show like Heroes from, say, a crime drama?
Oh yeah, and it's a, you know, I didn't know that at the time because I had never written a serialized show. It just eats through stories so quickly, and it requires, there isn't quite the idea of format that there is with a procedural show. You don't have the tent poles of the act breaks that have to be this and wrapping things up and all of that stuff. Right. It very quickly became apparent that I couldn't do, I could only contribute to a slice of the pie, that it was going to require a tremendous all hands on deck kind of. And it was something I was actually really interested in. I was thinking a lot about a kind of philosophy of writing, of wanting to do a writing based on the idea of what happens next, and not knowing where you're going. I was really intrigued by the idea of writing kind of blindly towards an ending. I feel like there's a inherent feeling or vibe that the audience has when they watch a show where they inherently know that the writers don't exactly know where they're going from point A to point B to point C. And I don't mean that in like a negative way. I think in a positive way. There's a kind of seat of your pants thrill ride quality to watching a show that is telling story in a very aggressive way, writing themselves into problems. And I think that's something that's that the audience can actually feel. They're sort of like, well, how are they going to get themselves out of this? They sort of inherently know that there's a that it's not completely planned out. It's a tried and true style of writing that was done. You know, goes back to like Charles Dickens, who wrote most of his novels as one chapter installments in the newspaper, and having no idea how long they were going to run and where they were going to eventually lead. There's a certain quality that I think comes with that, and I really became fascinated by that philosophy of writing. You know where you're going eventually, but you don't really know how you're going to get there.
Doesn't that scare you as a writer?
It's terrifying. It's terrifying, but it also is incredibly exhilarating. And there is a kind of collective brain when you get 10 or 12 really smart people in a room together for 25 or 30,000 hours. I really am a very firm believer that there's this other intelligence that starts to seep into that, and you start discovering these kind of hidden paths between stories that were laid out early on without even knowing they were there. And it's a kind of a remarkable thing.